Welcome to the San Gorgonio Chapter Trail Talk series. My name is John St. Clair, and I'm your Zoom host. I'm also one of the members of the Trail Talk Committee. And tonight's topic is hiking the Lonesome Miner Trail in the Inyo Mountains Wilderness. But before we get into the topic, I want to talk about several other things. First of all, to remind people that there are lots of outings in the outings and events section in our website, and we have hikes of varying difficulties for different levels of hiking that you might want to undertake. So take a look at that, see if you see anything that's interesting. And also, I want to remind everyone that you need to be muted unless you're the speaker or the host. And if you have questions during the presentation, what we want you to do is go to the bottom of your screen and click on the little chat icon. It has, on my computer, it has a little talking bubble icons and it says chat. And if you click on it, it opens up the chat box and you send your chat to the whole group. And Julianne is going to be monitoring that and relaying questions to our speaker. So if you have a question, go to chat, write it down so you don't forget it, and we'll make sure that all of your questions are eventually answered. Now, next month's Trail Talk is Car Camping 101, a presentation by Carla Kellums. And so if you want to get some good tips on planning and doing a car camping trip, tune in next month to the Trail Talk presentation on Car Camping 101. And I think at this point, I'm going to introduce Julianne Anderson. And Julianne wears a lot of hats. She's on the Trail Talk Committee, along with me and Carla Callums. And she also is the San Gorgonio Chapter Outings co-chair, and she is an outings leader. And she is going to be introducing our speaker tonight. So I will take the spotlight off me and turn it over to Julianne.
Oh, thank you, John. You're so sweet. Yes, I am co-chair of the outings program with our fabulous Dave Melton, who is on this Trail Talk. And we just talked yesterday morning about all the upcoming things. I notice on our viewership today we have the fabulous Joan Taylor, who was just on a backpacking trip with me this past weekend to the utterly gorgeous Horseshoe Meadows Trail Pass PCT area west of Lone Pine. We couldn't have asked for nicer weather. We had a group of 11, utterly stunning, and led by the wonderful Connie Burleson and Rachel Wilkin. A few things I wanted to highlight. I sent out to our outings leaders, but some of you are not on that list. I notice on our viewership. Some upcoming things I want you to take note of. This Friday is it's a pure social outing. We're enjoying the opening night of the Redlands Bowl, which is fabulous in the area, and it is this Friday at Redlands. It's free. I and my spouse will be there around 6 to stake out a bit of grass for us. It's on the side of the bowl nearest the Smiley Library. Kind of as you're looking at the stage, it's on the right-hand side of the amphitheater. It's free music. Opening night is pop divas. They're doing Whitney Houston, things like that. They have a jazz vocalist who's very good. So please come and join us. Our own Joe Amador and his wife will be there, and we especially want to support Jeannie Amador. She's going through some real challenges right now, so it'd be nice to have some fellowship around her and lift her up. Other things, we have our beginner backpack is this weekend, led by the wonderful Denise Allen, who did last month's Trail Talk. And Denise is fabulous. I think that that hike is at capacity, but it might not be. There are always last minute cancellations, so contact Denise. Look on the website. There's also going to be a backpacking trip this fall to Catalina that's in development by Rachel and Carla. Car camps upcoming. We have had beautiful car camping trips to Pioneer Town in the desert and to June Lake in the Eastern Sierra. The June Lake trip was 2 weeks ago. Stunning trip. Our upcoming trips are to Sequoia Kings Canyon on July 15th through 18th. I will be leading that. And I'm also leading the Grand Canyon trip on September 1st, Labor Day through the 4th. So check them out online on our sierraclub.org/San Gorgonio. Go to outings and events, and you'll see them listed on July 15th and September 1st. Our outings are ongoing. We have things practically every day. The fabulous John St. Clair has been leading challenging hikes in the Los Serranos group up in the San Bernardino and San Gabriel Mountains. Just fabulous hikes. Please join him. He means business. He's serious. So we have wonderful hikes led by John and many of us as well. And we also have the upcoming general meeting of the chapter, which is always the first Tuesday of the month. It's Tuesday, July 1st at the San Bernardino County Museum. It is always a great meeting. We have some food. We usually have a fine turnout and a speaker. So you can hear from our both our outing side and our advocacy side. There's a lot going on, as you can imagine. Two final things. I want you to mark your calendar for Saturday, July 26th. It's our quarterly outings program fundraiser, hiking and hamburgers. So we're going to be hiking up near the Keller Ski Hut, which is our Sierra Club cabin in the Running Springs area, beautiful cabin. And Carla and one of our other leaders will be leading a group up to a hike up to Little Green Valley, which is a charming, delightful hike. And then coming back down for lunch, we'll be having hamburgers of all kinds, Angus, vegetarian, all kinds of hamburgers. So come on down, join us for the hike, join us for the burgers and the cookout. Join us to hear about what's happening. And we're going to be having some of our young advocacy team leaders led by Jennifer Cardenas, I think, coming to speak with us, as well as many other folk that will be telling you what's going on. So nice to have some fellowship up in the forest at the beautiful Keller Hut. Finally, I want you all to put on your radar. We're reinvigorating our skills course for the public. We're calling it the Wilderness Adventure Course. It will be in January of 2026, so that's rapidly coming up in 6 months. And we will be teaching the public how to hike, car camp, and backpack safely and enjoyably so they can live our motto for the Sierra Club, which is explore, enjoy, protect. And we know so many people who are uncomfortable being in the wilderness because they never went as kids, for a whole host of reasons. And we're happy to show them how. And it'll be a hands-on program, teaching and then going out and hiking, and then teaching and going out and car camping, and teaching and going out and backpacking. So there's going to be a lot going on with the WAC, the Wilderness Adventure Course. So stay tuned for that, and we're going to have many folks teaching and participating in that. So with all of that, we have the fabulous Stacy Goss of Desert Survivors. I mean, talk about serious backpacking. You will hear about this. But I wanted to introduce her to you properly so you know just how serious this gal is. Although Stacy Goss began hiking in the Sierra when she was 16, she first discovered the desert when she got a quick 5-minute look into the Grand Canyon a couple of years later. That eventually led her to her discovery of the group Desert Survivors. with whom she did her first desert backpack in the Mojave Preserve almost 35 years ago. She found the rock art, along with the lack of people, trails, and water, a completely different experience than being in the Sierra. She has since explored many parts of the deserts of the Southwest, including California, Nevada, Arizona, and Utah. She now primarily enjoys the Sierra Mountains as she drives over them on the way to the desert or from the vantage point of the Inyo Mountains from the other side of the Owens Valley. She leads trips for desert survivors and is the current president. Stacy was previously a National Sierra Club backpack leader for the Southwest Subcommittee and has also been involved with the Sierra Club Desert Committee for the past 15 years. So we are so pleased to have you, Stacy, to come and talk about the Lonesome Miner Trail and your backpacking adventures in the Inyo Mountains. A very different experience than what a lot of us have with more standard backpacking, shall we say. And we're looking forward to your presentation. With that, ladies and gentlemen, this is Stacy Goss.
Great. Thank you. So yeah, let's go ahead and share the screen. Okay, let's see.
You're in.
Okay. All right. So, Lonesome Miner Trail, and since it is such a remote place, I want to give a little description of where it is. And the Inyos are in the far eastern California, and it's to the east of the towns of Big Pine to the north, and Lone Pine to the south, on Highway 395. And the range separates the Owens Valley to the west from the Saline Valley to the east. And it is managed by the BLM. And so here they are right here. If any of you have been to the Manzanar National Historic Site, you start the hike directly across from there. You just go east from that road right there. Bishop is to the north. I mean, that's the bigger town than Big Pine. Okay, so I do the Lonesome Miner Trail hike in 7 days. It can be, so that's a reasonable length for the average person. But this includes no layover days. And you can easily spend another day or two exploring some of the canyons that we will go in and out of, because there's a lot of mining history in each of those canyons. So as you can see from the chart over on the left-hand side, it's not a lot of miles, but it's the elevation that is the killer. The first day you go, 4 miles or so, but you go up 3,600 feet. So a lot of people, when you go backpacking, they say, well, how long is the trip? Or how many miles is the trip? And in this case, that's not really the concern, it's the elevation. But the most interesting thing to me about this hike is the mining history. And the trails were built and maintained between about 1860 and 1900. And almost every drainage in the eastern Inyos has one or more mills that are located between 5,100 feet and 8,400 feet. So that's the fun part that you get to go and explore every day, is all the mining stuff that's going on. However, since the mining activity stopped, the trails have not been maintained except by an occasional individual effort. And the trails are steep and narrow, and there's lots of it's very rocky terrain and precipitous slopes and a lot of dense brush. And since it's abandonment, long stretches of the trails have been wiped out by vegetation and landslides and other forms of erosion. So a lot of times the trails are hard to find. They used to be amazing trails that burros could walk over, carrying a full load, but that's most places that's no longer the case. Okay, so day one, we start at the Pat Keys Trailhead and we go to Dry Springs Camp. And the BLM trail description up here says, up in the upper left says, anyone using this trail must approach this as a rugged wilderness exploration where no other people will be encountered and no assistance is readily available. The trails are not maintained. So they are describing the first 8.5 miles, and they say there's no reliable water source along the trail. And actually the first day is some of the best maintained trail of the whole hike. But like you saw previously, it's, 4 miles and 3,600 feet. So this is the Sierra. This is what you're looking at. Almost the whole first day is the background with the Sierra. Okay, so within about an hour or so of starting the hike, we come upon these big boulders in the bend of the trail with hundreds of cupules in them. And it's just really interesting to see, very unexpected, and a lot of people miss them. But it's just, they weren't grinding pinion nets or anything. We don't know why it's there, but it's just really interesting to see. And these are the Alabama hills down here for anyone familiar with Lone Pine. So we'll get to camp by mid-afternoon, and people can either just relax during that day or the rest of the day, or we can do a short little hike to a historic little camp, a little ways from camp. Okay, day two. We'll go from the Dry Springs Camp to Pat Keys Canyon. But before we do that, aside from the steepness, a couple of things that makes this hike challenging is the food and the water. Because it's a 7-day hike, we're all carrying at least 8 pounds of food, probably more. So the woman in the center photo here is showing us her food stash that she was carrying. But more importantly is the issue of water. For people who are more familiar with backpacking in the Sierra, where water is a frequent companion and it's not an issue, on the 7-day hike that we're doing here, there are only 4 water sources, which are the springs in each of the canyons that we'll be camping in. So while we'll be at water every day, sometimes that means we leave water in the morning of one day and don't get to water again until late the next day. So we have 2 dry camps, meaning we aren't camped near water for 2 nights of the trip. And the first night being our first night. Because we won't get to water until we reach camp on day 2, a few weeks prior to the hike, I carry 1 gallon of water for each person up to the first night's camp so that people don't have to carry that extra 8 pounds of water on their first day when their packs are already their heaviest. However, on our second dry camp, which happens the middle of the trip, everyone has to carry all the water they're going to need for 2 days of hiking and 1 day of camping. For most people, that's about 6 to 8 liters of water, which is 12 to 16 pounds of water, depending on the weather. Most of the days when we do get to camp that night, we'll start out with 3 to 4 liters of water. So this picture up on the upper left is one of the hikers slugging down the last of the water from his water jug, because I carry it all up in one of the, like the Crystal Geyser gallon water jugs, but everybody has to bring the container themselves and put it in their pack to haul it out. Okay, so with our packs loaded with the 1 gallon of stashed water, we start the second day climbing ever higher until we eventually reach the crest of the Inyos, where we will traverse south and eventually start descending into Pat Keys Canyon. And that's what this view is over here. The open, vast views to the east as we walk along the crest are some of my favorite miles of the hike. It's just really open and gradual and just great hiking. Okay, so day 2 is when we'll also come across more evidence of Native Americans, as well as also starting to see more signs of recent miners. And the upper left picture here shows a rock ring or a circular alignment of stones. And these are very common along the hike, and they're signs of pinyon camps, which are areas that were occupied by the historic Paiute for the pinyon harvest. And the rock rings are generally 6 to 8 feet in diameter. And excavation has shown that they don't have any artifacts in them, and they don't have any fire pits. So all of this suggests that they are the remains of pine cone caches. And radiocarbon dating shows that the pinyon camps began around 600 AD. So we'll also begin to see signs of evidence from the miners that includes piles of cans, rock samples, and an arostra, which is one of the ways they use to process ore prior to the use of stamp mills, which is what this is right here in the center here. In the center of the circular depression would be a post with a horizontal pole to which a dragstone would be attached. And this is the dragstone right here. Burros would be attached to the horizontal pole and would walk around this ring all day long, pulling the dragstone inside the depression here. And with the use of the water, it would crush the ore that had been placed in the rock ring. So one of the hikers is lifting up the rock to show how flat it's become from being dragged around in this circular depression.
Hey, Stacy,
Yes.
a few questions. Do you mind?
Nope, go for it.
Speaking of the evidence of previous people, so evidence of the Native Americans go back to 600 AD. Are these all Shoshone Paiute, or are these people prior to that tribe? Or
Yeah,
what?
it would be at 600 AD, it should be the Shoshone Paiute,
Okay,
I would think. Yeah.
in the area. Okay, and the mining, was this all after the 1860s? What's the
Yeah, like 1870,
okay?
mid 1860s to 1870.
Okay. And then going back to what you were mentioning about the initial day, the incredible 3,600 foot elevation gain, which just is mind blowing. Um, how do you stay in shape to achieve that? That's a rigorous day of elevation gain. What's your personal regimen to do that?
Um, I think it's just regular hiking and find the steepest local trails that you can find and do them regularly.
Mhm.
We take lots of breaks. Um, we go about a little less than 1,000 feet an hour. So it's going to take 5 or 6 hours to get up there with breaks and lunch and all.
Right.
So it is doable. It's just, um, it's different type of hiking than most people are used to, in the
Right.
sense that you can't go fast. I mean, people our age are not going to be going fast.
Yeah. What's your pack weight that first day?
Um, well, I have a base weight of about 20 pounds, and then I add 8 pounds of food and 8 pounds of water, so 36.
Okay. Okay. And how do you manage to get that cache of water up there for everybody? I mean, are you going up and down many, many times? How do you do that? You carry all that water?
Usually, one of the other hikers will come with me, and we'll each carry like 3 gallons apiece. Because when we do on these hikes, there's maybe between 5 and 7 or 8 people that'll go on the hike.
Mm-hmm.
So if we each carry 3 gallons, that usually does it.
Incredible, Stacy. Incredible. Okay, that's it for now.
Okay. Okay, day 3. We're going from Pat Keys Canyon to McAvoy Canyon. So day 3, we climb out of Pat Keys Canyon, traverse south along the crest, and eventually drop down into McAvoy. We'll see more rock rings. I thought this one was a pretty elaborate one. But we'll also see a lot more evidence of the historical mining, like the mine shafts and the remains of buildings and significant trail work, which is like, I think this part is just really cool. I mean, it just shows how much effort was put into building the trail. And that's some of the most interesting parts to me is the rock work that was done to support the trails. The trails were the only means that the miners had to bring everything they needed into the mines and the mill sites in the towns. There was no easy access. And they did this by having burros laden with everything that they needed walk along the trail. So they had to be solid trails. And a lot of work was putting into developing them because it was the lifeline to the success of the mines. But the trails were essentially abandoned after mining ceased in the 1890s, late 1890s. But about the 1970s or 80s into the 90s, several individuals started exploring the area and noticed that there were mining remains and also realized that there was an extensive trail network to each of the mines and the mill sites in the towns. But most of these trails are not located on USGS or any other maps. And so this led to many years of work locating the old trails, clearing brush and trees that had grown over the trails, and doing a whole lot of trail maintenance. So today the trails are actually in far better condition than they were 50 years ago, because people have a lot more traffic they see a lot more traffic than they did 30 years ago. So we've just hiked 3 difficult days and we get the feeling like we are in a super remote place, but then we come down into McAvoy Canyon at the end of the day and then encounter these amazing rock structures. And to see the amount of work that has been put into building this mill site and think about the amount of noise that must have been going on 150 years ago, while now it's just complete silence all around us, is quite a contradiction. So this is just coming down the trail, and McAvoy Canyon is right down here. This is where we generally have our dinner. One of the hikers has already set up his spot. Yeah, I mean, just the elaborate work of these structures is amazing. Okay, so we have a sidebar here. In July of 2013, the Sierra Mountains and the White Inyo Mountains were hit by an extreme thunderstorm that were the most severe in many years. Numerous creeks experienced high mud and debris flow, causing flash flooding and damage, including the closure of Highway 395 several times. And while the biggest impact was felt by the towns located along 395, up in the Inyos, major destruction also occurred. In both Pat Keys and McAvoy Canyons, Pat Keys was our second night camp and McAvoy is our third night camp. The debris started in the upper canyon and in McAvoy continued past the historic mill site, which is right here, completely removing the remains of the early Arastra, the boiler, and the steam engine, and almost completely burying the 5-stamp mill. And the debris flow got as high as the bottom of the rock walls behind the stamp mill, but not as high as the rock walls of the adjacent large cabin. So it got to right here. So this is the before and this is the after picture. So the circle, what's circled in red was here, and then this is what it looked like afterward. And then this is from Pat Keys Canyon. this is now, the wheels are now buried almost to the top up here, just from the debris flow from there. And there's several more pictures of that. So this is McAvoy Canyon on the hike down. So this is all willow and wild rose up here. And this is before the flash flood, and this is after. So it's just completely scoured. And the flow was mostly mud and sand, not so much water. I mean, it wasn't just a big flow of water. It was really viscous, like lava or thick pancake batter.
Wow.
And it had very few rocks and boulders mixed in. It was more fine pebble and fine grained. And this cast iron boiler, which was once at the mill site, here it is, right here and right here. It's a cast iron boiler that was washed three quarters of a mile downstream from the mill site.
Wow.
And back in 2014, while the canyon bottom was still scoured, it didn't have any vegetation in it. We were able to walk that 3/4 mile down there and see it where it had washed to. Nowadays, it'd be brutal to try to get down there, but the wild rose has all grown back, the tamarisk and the willows, and it's all back.
Hey, Stacy.
Yeah.
More questions. All of this rather extensive mining equipment, were these individual miners sort of self-investing, or were these larger sort of companies that were seeking outside investment?
Yeah, they were the bigger companies.
Okay.
People work for the companies. Miners work for the companies.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was incorporated. Beverage Mining District was incorporated.
Oh, what's the Beverage Mining District? What's that?
That encompasses almost the whole area that we're talking about here.
And what were they mining? Gold or other things?
Yeah, it was mostly gold, but it also included silver and other different types of metal. Eventually also included talc.
Okay. And why did it peter out in the 1890s, or did it peter out? Why did it stop?
Because they had mined all the big gold veins. They couldn't, with the technology they had at that point, they didn't have the ability to get it anymore, the big profitable gold.
Okay. You're talking about how the trail is in far better shape than it was in the 70s. Is there a network of desert backpackers that use it or do trail maintenance, or is it desert survivors? Who is using this trail, and how do people find out about it?
I don't know if there's a real network. I mean, there used to be a more solid network of a group of guys who would go up there on a regular basis, including my husband. But nowadays, I don't know that people go up there on a regular basis and maintain the trail. It seems like there's quite a bit of people doing it for to see how fast they can do it. Like, the things that they do these days, like the personal best time things, which will not ever be me. But so I have seen a lot of names, and if you do an internet search on it, you'll see several reports of people posting what their personal best is for that and how they can do it in 3 days or 4 days but I don't know of anyone who's actively maintaining it.
Okay. This is such a remote kind of a seemingly really rigorous backpack. Ever had to air evacuate somebody or get somebody out of there? It seems like it's just a really rigorous backpack.
Yeah, a few years ago, we did have to hit the inReach button. One of the hikers felt like she was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And they were able to get in. We got as far as what I'm showing you here today is the second night's camp.
Hmm.
At that point, she wasn't getting better. So we turned around, walked back up to where we had lunch, our usual lunch spot, and camped there. Um, we thought we might hike. She just at that point was feeling sick. We didn't know what her real issue was. So we knew we weren't going to go any further. So but just as it was getting dark, she realized she wasn't getting any better when she should. And so we pushed the button and the helicopter came. It took them quite a while because it was dark and there's not a lot of good landing spots up there. And they probably had to land the helicopter maybe half a mile or so uphill, maybe a third of a mile uphill. But she was able to walk to the helicopter, and then they took her to the local hospital. And she did not have a heart attack, thankfully. So
What was it, if I may ask?
we don't know. She thought that it might have been food poisoning because it turns out her partner also had food poisoning and they had eaten a meal together right before the hike.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So, okay, good to know. And just the inReach emergency button.
Yep. Yep. It
Works.
worked very well.
Okay.
Okay, so day 4. We're going from McAvoy Canyon to Keenot Ridge. And for me, this is the most difficult hike because we have to carry so much water. We leave with almost 2 gallons because we will be dry camping that night. And all the vegetation has grown back in the canyon in the preceding 10 years. So when we leave camp, we are immediately having to fight our way through the willows and the tamarisk and the wild rose that's in this creek bottom here. And then up through to try to find a not very evident trail on the other side of the canyon. And then we climb up that hillside for the rest of the day. So this is the where we get the water when we're in McAvoy. So it's very it's the springs. And this is our own Joan Taylor
Yay!
trail. She did the hike. What was it, Joan? 2017, I think I was looking at it.
Yes, October. Beautiful weather. It was fabulous.
Okay, so that night we camp at Keenot Ridge, and it's a long day, but it's a beautiful camp. We're among the bristlecone pines. We get a beautiful view of Saline Valley off to the east, and if we're up early enough, we can see the sun rising then the next morning as well. And here's another rock ring that's up there. We have one of the hikers who is taking a rest before she sets up her camp. Okay, day 5. This day we were walking almost constantly amongst the mines and the mill sites and the towns. We are surrounded the entire day by mining history. And this first part that we walk by it's called the Keenot Mine. And it's one of the most extensive mining areas in the district and one of the last that was operating. And it operated continuously from 1878 to 1893 and briefly during the 1920s and 30s. And the equipment that's left there includes a lot of equipment from the 20s and beyond. And it includes huge piles of tailings, which we have to descend right up this upper right-hand picture. We have to descend through there. A couple of ore carts, and then a bulldozer that was flown in 1983. So a bulldozer. So yes, a bulldozer was flown. So all through the 1980s, desert survivors and the Sierra Club were involved in lawsuits and appeals against a miner who wanted to reopen the Keenot mine by reprocessing the rock in the mine's tailing waste. You know, as we were kind of talking about before, back in the 1890s, the technology they had, they couldn't get at any more of the gold. But now, you know, back in the 80s, things had changed enough where they found a way that they could access more of the finer gold that they missed the first time around. So the guy wanted to come back and go through all the tailings waste and try to get out more. So anyway, the lawsuits, there were many appeals against the BLM for inappropriate actions involved with approving the mining plan. And the miner had proposed to blast and hack a road along the ridges to reach the mine and hope to use cyanide to leach out the gold that was left behind. And he got as far as helicoptering a bulldozer into the mine site. The miner lost in court time and time again, but it wasn't until the area was designated as the Inyo Wilderness as part of the 1994 California Desert Protection Act that we could really be sure of the area's protection for mining. So the bulldozer is still there because the miner had rented the bulldozer, and when he lost the final lawsuit, he abandoned the rental bulldozer. And the BLM has since tried to camouflage the bulldozer with spray paint, but it's not very easy to camouflage a bulldozer in wilderness. So, but everyone likes to get their picture taken on the bulldozer.
Hey, Stacy.
Yes.
What was the Sierra Club's and Desert Survivors' involvement in getting this area included in the Desert Protection Act 30 years ago?
I don't know. I mean, I just know that they argued a lot heavily to get it included in it.
Joan, do you know?
Well, I don't know this specifically, but I got an area in, and it was just by talking with the leaders of the Desert Bill and Senator Feinstein at the time. And then we got Princeton to put another area in earlier. So it was having agreement among the leaders of the CDPA and then getting the elected to agree to it.
Nice.
Yeah, and in some ways, you would think this wouldn't make sense to have as a wilderness area because, you know, it doesn't fit the description of being untrammeled by humans, you know, with all this mining history but it got in.
Mm-hmm. Well, and given the amount of geological interest in this, or interest by mining concerns, it's a good thing you got this in.
Yeah.
Good work, Joan.
No, I didn't do this one. I did a couple others.
Okay, so continuing on with day 5, eventually we get to the Beverage Ridge cabin after we leave the Keenot mine. And about 15 years ago, this cabin was stabilized by the BLM with help from a lot of volunteers. They spent, I think, a week or so up there rehabbing the place. And it's a great place to have lunch so that we have plenty of time to check out what's inside the cabin, because there's a lot of cool, interesting mining relics that are inside the cabin. So
How old are some of those relics? Are those dating back to the 20s or back to the 1870s?
that's probably back to the 1870s, 80s.
How fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, so after leaving the Beverage Ridge cabin, it's about an hour descent to get to the town of Beverage, which was established in 1878. And Michael DeJohnette, who has a really good book on hiking Western Death Valley National Park, says this about it. It says, around 35 mines about the Beverage area. About 35 mines were intermittently operated in the district. The main commodity was gold, although lead and silver were also produced. Beverage had the advantage of having a good water supply. As the main community in a largely empty range, During this time, Beveridge served as the local social center. It remained occupied until the late 1900s. By then, the high-grade pockets had been exhausted and most of the mines had been closed down. So Beveridge is probably the most well-known area of the Inyo Mountains. It's relatively easy to get to. You can get there within a day and a half, couple days. So that does probably get the most frequent visitors because it's such a cool place to see. It has a 5-stamp mill, a cast iron boiler, a wood burning furnace, and a tramway that still has several of the towers and cables and a couple of buckets attached. And if you're in this upper right corner, it also has a unique outhouse that can only be accessed by this narrow board right here. And the outhouse has no bottom, and so it just flows right down into the creek. During its heyday, Beveridge also had a post office and a polling place. Okay, after exploring the town side of Beveridge, we make our way up the creek for about another hour until we get to Frenchie's cabin where there is piped water. And so literally there is a pipe stuck in the spring and it runs into a bucket. And we spend the night at Frenchie's. And Frenchie's is also another cool little cabin that is worth some exploring. Okay, day 6. We go from Frenchie's cabin to the Bighorn Spring. So day 6, we leave Frenchie's cabin and make the climb to a broad open saddle before dropping down to the Bighorn Mine and cabin. And we get a nice long break there. So this is the view from almost the saddle. And way down here in the circle is, you can just barely see the cabin. And it really gives you a good perspective of how little and insignificant you are way out here. There's this big cabin out there. And here's a closer view with a couple of hikers coming into the cabin. And then we have the inside of the cabin, and there's lots of writings in that cabin and lots of pictures, old pictures in there that are fun to look through. So we spent some time there relaxing and going through some of the old stuff that's in the cans. Eventually, we continue downhill and we get to the Bighorn Spring. And the furnace and the steam engine of Hunter's Mill are still there. And they're from 1877. And there's several arostras around here too. Okay, day 7, it's our last day. We hike from Bighorn Spring to the Hunter Canyon trailhead. And we leave this camp this morning with an abrupt climb, which seems very unfair because we will eventually be descending 5,000 feet. But it's the last hike, the last climb of the hike. But as we're descending all day, we watch Saline Valley come nearer and nearer. It's a nice day because it's very open. So you just get these great views all day long. So about halfway down, we get to these wooden tent platforms, which are right down here. And it includes bed springs, and the beds were used by workers of the what's called the Gold Standard mine. And although it was one of the district's largest producers of silver. And this is a good flat place to have lunch and enjoy the final view of the hike. And after lunch, we all head down to the vehicles, which we had set up as part of a car shuttle the day before the hike. And my husband, who was one of the first people to introduce me to the Inyos over 30 years ago and knows the area far better than I do, will also be waiting with cold beers and soda for all. And then it is a short drive to the Saline Valley Hot Springs, where we get a well-deserved celebratory dinner. And we get to watch the sunset over the Inyo Mountains and see the Lonesome Miner Trail. And we get a spaghetti dinner and some beer and a soak in the springs and a relaxing evening. And that is the end of the hike.
Oh my goodness. More questions, more questions. As to mining generally, Stacy, was there more mining here in the Inyos than in the Sierras? You think?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So, um, and is the Saline Valley directly to the west of the Panamint Valley? Is it kind of between Owens and Panamint?
It's directly to the east of
Oh,
the Inyos.
okay. So it's
The
right.
Panamint, yeah, the Panamints are farther south.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, and then about what altitude were you at on day 4 when the when you saw the bristle cones? Is that about 6 or 7,000 feet or
I think that's higher. I think it's probably like 9-ish.
okay, quite high, quite high. And then you're dropping steadily down.
Right.
And what's the altitude and what's the elevation in Saline
I
Valley?
mean, I don't know,
Yeah, so you're
1,000 maybe?
wow, so you've really dropped.
Yeah.
You've come right down. Wow. I mean, you're very modest. This is quite the hike. This is quite the hike. Wow. So, Joan, do you have any stories of the trail?
Well, I wondered if Stacy, who by the way is an incredible hike leader, I've been on at least 2 of your hikes, I think, strenuous hikes, and just a fabulous leader and strong woman. Do you want to tell the story of you and Marty wandering around the mountains and meeting your future husband and Tom Budlong, who, by the way, probably is the one who got this in the Desert Bill, who was a Sierra Club, Desert Committee activist. But it's a great story if you want to tell it.
So my first trip into the Inyos was with Marty Dickies, and her and I went, and we, on the 3rd day, I think, we very much lost the trail, and for me, it was extremely stressful because of the no water part and the trails may be bad up there, but any trail in the Inyos is better than no trail because these were giant boulders that we were climbing over. And eventually we got to the flat part and we came across, I think there were 4 or 5 people, including Tom Budlong. And we were going to go down the other side, and they said, no, don't do that. Come back with us and camp with us, and we'll take you, come down into Saline Valley, and we'll drive you back to your cars the next day. So we did that. And it turns out Jerry, my husband, he was a desert survivor at that point, had made these piles of wood for a fire. And so we were able to enjoy this wonderful fire. We were all physically and mentally exhausted from a very hard day because they'd come up through snowfields. Marty and I had gotten very misled on no trails. And then when we went down when we came out to Saline Valley the next day, Jerry was there at the hot springs, and I told him about the fire, and he said he had put the wood there because he knew that anybody who was there would be exhausted and would appreciate the firewood already being prepared. So then in the fall, I went on his trip.
And the rest is history. Yeah, there are places where there is trail, but there are other places where, Stacy, you were leading us through wild rose, and then we were climbing talus piles, basically.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go in there without some really, really good guide.
But there are lots of people who do that,
Well,
which
they
is,
probably have it on a GPS and just
yeah,
sort of make their way, but they probably don't follow the old routes the way you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Stacy, what a fabulous presentation. Oh my goodness. Now, do you do this on an annual basis?
I've been doing it. Jerry had done it for years and years, and then he's just unable to go up there anymore, unfortunately. Um, so I've been trying to do the Lonesome Miner Trail every other year,
Hmm.
including this September. So,
Well,
Dave, if you want to go on, you know,
I suspect that we have a number of our outings leaders that would be capable of doing this. And it would be great to have kind of an advanced hike like this for those that are truly capable. I mean, this is a fabulous hike for the history alone, and
yeah,
not to mention the natural history, which we barely scratch the surface about. I mean, bristlecones, you know, most people just think you go up to the bristlecone
yeah,
scenic area out of Big Pine, but here they are. I mean, just so fabulous.
yeah. And if you go in the spring, the wildflowers are amazing, and the cactus are blooming.
To me, it was, and as Tom Budlong says, the best view of the Sierras from the Inyo. The view of the Sierras going in, and then the unbelievable colors of Saline Valley. I mean, it was just a delicious, delicious view wherever you looked. It was a lifer.
Well, I hope that you're in touch with us about this, Stacy, because this is fabulous and I think really iconic. What other hikes do you do in the desert? That
Um,
what do you lead on a regular basis?
on a, I would say not so much in the regular basis. In May, I did a trip, a 7-day backpack for desert survivors to Dark Canyon in Utah.
Hmm.
Um, so I know a couple of the San Gorgonio folks started that one, Connie and um, Lisa.
Lisa, yeah, yeah. Um, and I know Dave also, we're very interested in offering a wide range of outings to our membership, to the public here in the chapter. And, not only the less strenuous ones to accommodate folk, but the more strenuous ones. I think that's important to do as well. And as you and Joan have shown, how important it is to get people out into these um, seldom, relatively seldom hiked wilderness areas so that people understand them and can get them into legislation to protect them. I think that's really important too. So I would sure love it for our chapter to hook up with you and Desert Survivors to do some joint work and joint outings. I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Dave, have you ever been up in this area?
No, I haven't, but it'd be wonderful to get there.
Yeah,
Okay,
challenge.
Dave, September.
Yeah, yeah. Something
I
for us
don't,
to think about.
Does
So,
does Desert Survivors have a website?
Yeah, it's desert-survivors.org.
okay,
Okay.
You
okay.
have to include that hyphen, otherwise you're going to get the nursery, the garden nursery in Arizona.
Okay. Well, gosh.
Um, I'd also like to, since this is a Sierra Club talk, mention that in August 2nd and 3rd, the Desert Committee is having its annual weekend meeting up in the White Mountains, which is just north of the Inyo Mountains. And we reserved the campground, the group campground, and we'll be having 2 days of talks. You were talking about outings and advocacy. Would be the advocacy side. Um, where we have a variety of speakers come and talk about issues that are on the radar. And generally they're specific to that area. Like I'm sure there'll be talks on Conglomerate Mesa and Bodie Hills. So if anyone is interested in that, that would be August 2nd and 3rd.
And that is at what campground?
It's the Nelson Group Campground.
And where is that basically?
I think it's Inyo National Forest.
Okay.
It's on the way up to the bristlecones,
Oh, so it's up on, is it before you get to Grandview or after?
right before.
Okay. The Nelson Group Camp. I think I know where that is. I think I've seen that. Joan, do you know where that is?
Yeah, I've been there, and
Okay.
Stacy runs that meeting.
Okay.
And there's usually a hike in the morning. I mean, it isn't all advocacy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they'll have conviviality. Is there going to be a potluck,
Yep.
Okay.
happy hour, that kind of thing?
Okay. Okay. Um, let us know if you'd like, I don't want to be pushy here, but let us know if you'd like us to if you'd like to include us and if we can put it on our outings list. And we'll post it up.
Yeah, we posted it on Cal Activist. It's open to all, right, Stacy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So please do. Yeah,
Yeah.
come
That's
one,
just
come
a
all.
beautiful, beautiful area. We did a car camp up at Grandview last August. It was stunning. What a wonderful area. So yeah. Okay. Um, wow, Stacy, we could just talk and talk about this stuff. Thank you for your time and for beaming down from Northern California. Uh, where are you? Are you in San Jose or Santa Clara or
Santa Clara, right next to San Jose.
nice, beautiful? So thank you for taking your time to give us such a splendid peek into the Inyos. I mean, I feel like we're just scratching the surface of this really interesting area.
Yeah, it was tough to narrow it down. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
during COVID, I gathered up all the stuff I had on the Inyo Mountains and I made this binder. So I have a whole binder
How cool is that? You are together. Well, that's the kind of leader we want, somebody who is serious about this and together. Well, speaking of, I seriously hope that you work with us and maybe we can have some outings together with Desert Survivors. I think that would be wonderful. You guys are exceptional. Um, and everybody applaud, applaud. So thank you, Stacy.
Great.
And just a shout out, last chance for questions. Otherwise, we're gonna have to give Stacy her evening back because she has been giving us a lot of her time, including the practice session before. Um, I do want to reiterate that we have backpacks coming up this coming weekend and then in the fall, and maybe even some more at the middle of the end of the summer, depending on who has availability. And then two car camps, July 15th and September 1st. So and many, many outings of hikes of all various types. So please check the outings list and sign up and join in. It's just nice to have the hiking with you and the all the outings with you and just the fellowship. So would love to see you, everybody. So our thanks to you, Stacy. Thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah. You're welcome.
So, John, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Yeah, I think at this point I'm going to stop the recording.